Welcome to the Besties with Breasties podcast. Sarah Hall here. I am a certified health and wellness coach, athletic trainer, mom, and breast cancer survivor. I help women overcome their own mind drama to make mind shifts that open up the possibility for their most empowered and energetic life.
And I am Beth Wilmus, author, speaker, and founder of a human investment organization, otherwise known as a nonprofit, called Faith Through Fire. Our mission is to reduce the fear and anxiety that breast cancer patients feel and replace it with hope and a path toward thriving.
This podcast is about our experiences with breast cancer
and life after as young survivors and moms. Hello.
Hello.
I feel like it's let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Well, this isn't coming out until like March or April. So anyway,
okay.
We're in a lot of snow right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, that might not make sense for when you're listening to this.
We dug ourselves out of the house to make it here, though.
Yeah,
so that's how much we love you.
Yeah, we did. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Guess what we're talking about?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
About meaning and purpose.
Meaning and purpose. We've got a guest today, Stephanie. I'm super excited to talk to her. I really like her story. But before we kind of introduce her, I know how you feel about this, but how important is it to have purpose and meaning in life in general? And then
so important.
And then after breast cancer in particular.
I'm going to say it doesn't matter either way. I think that your eyes aren't open to it sometimes until after something traumatic or tragic. Right. So I think it's important, just as important before and after, but I think you are more aware of it after.
Yeah, for sure. And we always talk about it. It's funny. People that we deal with at Faith Through Fire who have had breast cancer, it's like they tend to fall into two different buckets. It's I want to really get involved in the community and find a way to give back to other breast cancer patients. And then there's the people that are like, heck no.
Yeah.
I want to leave this behind me.
In the dust.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to live it. And it's like upsetting to them to even like talk about it.
Yeah. Which is funny because I do feel like they sort of circle back sometimes and they're like, oh, this isn't going to go away.
Well, I do think that does happen. Like they think I'm going to leave this behind and then they realize it's kind of a part of who they are now.
Yeah.
And I get that. I totally relate to that. I did not want this to be a part of my identity. And now it's a huge part of my identity.
It's funny because I never thought it. I never thought, oh, I'm either going to leave this behind or I'm going to do something with this. I had like a thought where I was like, oh, I would like to do something where I help other people when I'm done with this. But I wasn't like, I'm going to make this my entire identity and my career.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and then look, here we are.
I know. Well, that's what happens when you're just open, right?
That is true.
Because if I had kept my mindset of, I'm not going to deal with this ever again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But I just think it's interesting because people do tend to kind of go one of two ways. But you're right. People will loop back around when they realize that they can't necessarily leave it the way that they imagined.
Yep.
And I always think, quit, fighting City Hall. Like it's... You know what I mean? Lean into it.
Yeah.
Lean into it.
Right.
See what happens. So today we're going to be talking to Stephanie, who's a Faith Through Fire member who recently completed treatment, and she's navigating how to find purpose after the storm.
So first we'll hear a little bit about Stephanie's experience with breast cancer.
Yeah. Then how breast cancer kind of changed her perspective on life.
And then finally, the changes she made both personally and professionally to find meaning and purpose after her diagnosis.
But before we introduce or say hi to Stephanie, let's hear from our first sponsor. Are you feeling scared, overwhelmed, or lost post-treatment? Do you want to reclaim your life and thrive even better than before breast cancer? Faith Through Fire Survivorship Bootcamp is designed for breast cancer survivors who are committed to living their fullest lives. If you're ready to leap forward, seize personal growth, and redefine your journey, this bootcamp will provide the path. You might benefit from our bootcamp if the excitement of completing treatment has worn off, leaving you feeling unsure about your future. You feel confused by your new post-cancer identity and struggle to accept your, quote, new normal. You want to enjoy life again but feel stuck in a cycle of negative emotions. Or you feel disconnected from yourself, others, or God. Our bootcamp offers a structured roadmap that delves deep into 4 key areas crucial for post-cancer recovery and thriving: understanding trauma, cultivating a fighting spirit, managing anxiety and intrusive thoughts, and redefining and reshaping your identity so you can rediscover your joy and purpose in life. You can participate in person in St. Louis or online. To join our waitlist, visit faiththroughfire.org/survivorship-bootcamp. Well, welcome, Stephanie. Thank you for coming today. Thanks for being on. I'm already
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So start out by kind of sharing briefly your breast cancer journey. When were you diagnosed? What were you diagnosed with? And how did it all hit you?
So I was diagnosed in August of 2023 with stage 2 lobular carcinoma. And I had been getting tested because I have the PALB2 gene mutation. So I had an MRI in July, and they called me and they said everything looked good, but I had an enlarged lymph node they wanted to look at. So I did a biopsy of the lymph node, and that's when they discovered the cancer. And then they went back and did 2 more biopsies and found 2 spots where I had very small areas, but they said I was stage 2 because it had spread to the lymph node.
Okay.
So
I'm really curious about that mutation. How did you find out that you had that? Because that's a new one. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I had gone to get a mammogram, and they went through my family history, and my grandmother and all her sisters and her mother all had some form of either breast cancer or gynecological cancers. So even though it hadn't affected my mom or her sisters, they asked if I wanted to do genetic testing, and I said yes. And then, I didn't have the BRCA gene, but they said I had this PALB2 mutation, which I had never heard of. It's pretty new. I think they discovered it like 8 or 9 years ago. And it's like the sister gene to BRCA. So it made me higher risk for breast cancer. So they gave me 2 options. They said I could either do preventative mastectomy or I could do increased screenings. And my particular mutation was considered likely carcinogenic because it's a newer gene. They don't have a lot of information on it. So it wasn't definitively carcinogenic. So I took the more conservative approach to start out with just some increased screenings. And this was only my second MRI. So it was pretty shocking that I had cancer. Definitely was not expecting that.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
That's a really interesting progression that you got offered that, that testing, and then you started to kind of up your screening, and then were diagnosed so quickly after finding that out. How did that hit you emotionally? I mean, you have a family history. You knew, I guess, in the back of your mind, this was a possibility, but what did it feel like when you heard the news for yourself?
Yeah, I think I always had it in the back of my mind that this was a possibility that I would get breast cancer just because of the family history. But because my mom and her sisters were not affected by it, I kind of thought, maybe it's not going to happen to me. I always thought, in my 40s, I would have to be vigilant about getting mammograms, and I really wasn't. I only had maybe 2 or 3 mammograms before the genetic testing. And that's because they said I had extremely dense breast tissue and they really couldn't see anything anyway. So I was like, well, then what's the point of the mammogram? But then when they did the genetic testing and they said, well, we're going to do the MRI as well, I thought, okay, well, this makes sense. But again, because I hadn't had any issues, and I don't know, you just never think it's going to happen to you. So
yeah.
I just really thought I had a little more time to decide whether or not I wanted to get the preventative mastectomy. When I saw the doctor and she said I would need to have my nipples removed, for some reason that just seemed very extreme. And so I just needed a little more time to process it all. And, I thought, well, maybe I'll do some increased screenings for a couple years and then get to a place where I was ready for the preventative mastectomy. But I didn't get that opportunity. Of course, in hindsight, I wish I had done it earlier, but I didn't know. I did the best I could with the information I had at the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of times what people, I feel, are processing is what they thought that they would have life, or things, the way that things looked, or the fact that something was a surprise, and this was a total surprise for you, for it to be something that you had on your mind that would be a possibility, and then it coming up a lot quicker than you had ever anticipated. So
yeah, you're definitely
a
not
lot
the
to
first.
process.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're definitely not the first Faith Through Fire member who was contemplating a preventative mastectomy only to find out that you were diagnosed before you had the time to process that news. So yeah, that's tough, but I think your attitude about it is spot on, right? You do what you can with the information that you have, and there's no looking back. What did you, so you ended up doing the whole treatment plan, correct?
Yeah, so originally I thought I might need just 8 weeks of chemo, but when I met with my oncologist, he said I would need 5 months of chemo. And then I did the total mastectomy after that. And then I had 28 rounds of radiation. And then I ended up getting a hysterectomy as well because of my increased risk of ovarian cancer. So it was quite a lot. I was off of work for 11 months before I completed treatment and went back to work. I still have my reconstruction ahead of me in a couple of months. And, I'm taking some drugs and hormone suppression therapy. So really still kind of in the thick of it.
Yeah. What did you find the most challenging part of breast cancer to be? Or, are you in it now? Was it when you were going through active treatment? Like, what was your biggest challenge, did you feel?
Well, I think initially, it was just dealing with the shock of it because I felt so healthy and strong when I was diagnosed. I was working out, eating well. And then I just kind of felt like, well, what was the point of that?
Right.
And, just slowing down because I have been working really hard over the last few years with COVID. My company downsized and I took on a lot of extra work. And so I was just really going hard for a long time. And so initially it was just really hard to slow down and focus on healing. But I really took the time off work for self-reflection and to really just, reflect over my life and what was ahead and what I wanted for my future.
Did you find taking that time off to be very healing? I mean, there's lots of women who don't have the luxury of taking off work, but I did the same thing that you did. I took off as much work as I possibly could and was basically off like 8 months, I think. And I just credit that time off and self-reflection, to your point, to being so healing and so clarifying for me that I just don't think I'd be in the position I'm in today if I hadn't done that. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people like to continue working because it gives them a routine and a distraction. For me, I felt really blessed that I was able to stop working because I needed to slow down and I needed that time to reconnect with my family, with my friends. I really focused on connecting with others and reaching out for support. And that was really helpful for me throughout my journey, just having that time to reconnect with other people.
I mean, it is interesting when you get breast cancer, especially if you're a go-go person, which I am as well. So I can completely relate to you with that. Was that time of reconnection? I mean, was there a vulnerability to this for you? I mean, for me, breast cancer made me feel very vulnerable. And there was something healing also about embracing that instead of running from it, which is what I would have done prior to cancer. Tell us a little bit about like mentally your thought processes and how you felt. Was there an evolution there?
Oh, definitely. So originally, it was really hard for me to be at home because I felt guilty. I felt like I should be doing more. I felt like I should be either working or doing more around the house or just doing more in general. And so I felt a lot of guilt at first, but then that guilt went away. So initially I worked with a coach whose mother had gone through breast cancer. And so she was able to help me gain clarity on like what direction I wanted to move forward in because I was considering a career change. And so she helped me work through that process. And then I started working with a therapist, a licensed professional counselor, because I had heard from others that it would be a good idea to establish a relationship with a counselor before I felt like I really needed one. And that was the best advice I ever got because when I started working with my counselor, I really didn't feel like I needed to see her. I mean, I had some relationship issues I wanted to work through, but a few months into seeing her, like things really started to get to the point where I needed help. And so I was really thankful that I had already established that relationship with her because things definitely got tougher the longer this went on because it's definitely a marathon and things come out of left field that you're not expecting with relationship changes and so forth. So that was really helpful to have already established that relationship with her.
Yeah, and it really sort of seemed like this journey also helped you put a lot of things into perspective if you were considering a career change and you were really reevaluating how you lived your life. Like you have to have help as you navigate all of those mind shifts.
I think we're constantly encouraging women in the Faith Through Fire program, like really consider counseling. And to your point, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't need it or I'm doing fine.
Yeah. Or the one I hear is like, I'm not that bad.
I'm not that bad. It's not that bad. And it's like, okay, girlfriend, like this isn't a judgment zone, right? No. But you're going to be glad that you took that proactive step, because, you're exactly right. When you have your team together and then things happen, you're ready for it. So I commend you on being so proactive with your self-care. I think that's amazing. I want to dive into, you touched on contemplating a career change, and I want to touch on finding purpose and meaning after your breast cancer experience. But before we talk about that, you want to do Boobs in the News?
Let's do it.
All right. Boobs in the News is a fun segment where we read funny tweets by real people or ridiculous news stories.
Boobs in the news, boobs in the news, boobs in the news.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. The title of this, I love it. Man uses rude driver's license plate to play the lottery and wins $500,000.
Wow, rude license plate to play
Yes.
the lottery.
So this,
he uses the numbers.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this just happened. A Maryland man used the license plate number from a car that cut him off in traffic to play the lottery.
That's karma.
And won
That is
$500,000.
Hilarious.
Isn't that crazy? So
Yeah.
the man, his name is Glenn, he told the Maryland lottery officials that he was driving on the highway recently when a rude driver cut him off, which caused him to make a mental note of the other vehicle's license plate.
Funny. Which was?
Yeah, right. We're not going to out him.
Yeah.
I'm not-
but still, like,
It doesn't say.
Oh, we don't know
We're
what
yelling.
we don't
We're
know
yelling.
what state it was.
Our sound
That
guy's
was
like,
exciting.
yeah, we got excited. Our sound guy's like,
I want to know what the license plate is.
oh, no, they don't tell us. They're
Oh.
protecting the rude driver.
Dang.
It says the man ended up visiting a liquor store and then decided to use the license plate numbers for his Pick 5 tickets. And
I'm imagining like the letter A, 2 5s, and then H, the number 0, L, and E.
am I supposed to know what that is? What is that? I wasn't paying attention. Is it? Okay.
Really? Asshole.
Ah!
He says a rude. You can't tell me the story and not tell me because now
He
I'm like,
used
what?
his actual license plate numbers. He didn't.
Oh, I thought
I'm
you
like-
said it's a rude license plate.
No, the driver was rude.
Okay, so I didn't hear that the wrong way.
No.
Okay, good.
Okay, the guy was rude. He cut him off. And then he
Right.
took note of what his license plate was.
Okay.
And then he played those numbers.
Got it. The way the story reads, though, is that he cut him off, but his license plate was rude.
Oh, no.
And he used the rude
No.
license plate
No.
as the...
No.
Okay.
Guy was rude. He took note of his license plate number and then
Hilarious.
played it in the lottery later. But what I think is funny is that he was at a liquor store. He's like, this guy, right? He gets
Yeah.
cut off in traffic. He's like, I'm going to the liquor store.
Yeah.
And then he decides to buy a lottery ticket. So
but it paid off.
he said, I figure if you're going to play, you should play big. He found his traffic troubles paid off when the ticket earned him a total prize of $500,000. He said the winner said his prize money will go toward paying bills and making investments. How's that?
That's pretty cool.
Like you said,
I mean, this is one of those reminders where you need to read the signs. The
Yeah.
signs that life is giving you.
Right?
Like, maybe you should jot down the license plate of the person who cuts you off.
Yeah, anybody who's rude to you, just find a way to use that for good.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the
karma.
message.
Yeah.
Ugh, I hate that word karma.
Why?
Ugh, it's so foo-foo-y.
It's not foo-foo-y.
It is too.
It's karma. It's getting your comeuppance.
Your comeuppance. I mean, most people are just like, the bad guys always win, right? Like karma is,
The bad guys always win.
I mean, I think a
That's
lot.
not a bad guy winning. That's the good guy winning.
No, that's a good guy winning. So I guess karma's good. Whatever. All right, there's your boobs.
There's your bibs.
Boobs in the news, boobs in the news, boobs in the news.
All right, we're back. So, we were talking about it before you hopped on, Stephanie, about the importance of finding purpose and meaning in the journey and how often breast cancer can really set you on a path to reevaluate your life and what you want to do with it. Did you find yourself, a lot of people after they get done with the active phase of treatment, they start thinking, gosh, life is so precious. I want to hit the ground running and take advantage of every opportunity. You start noticing the things in your life that aren't serving you, and then you start wanting to make changes. That's where you found yourself, correct?
Yeah. So when I was diagnosed, I didn't actually get a phone call from the doctor. I just discovered it on the portal. And
the worst.
That's why we don't
it
like
was
the portal.
awful. And it was on a Friday, so I couldn't get a hold of anyone for a couple of days. So
Not traumatic
when I
at
read-
all.
yeah, when I read the report, it said metastatic breast cancer. I thought I was dying. I thought it was like stage 4 and I was done for. So the thought I had immediately was I thought I had more time. And when I thought that, it made me think about what did I want to do in this life that I hadn't already done. And a big thing for me was becoming a therapist. It's something that when I was an undergrad, I thought about majoring in psychology, but I didn't see a good career path at the time. And so I ended up going into human resources, which has been great. I love human
I was going
resources.
to say, there's a little
And
psychology involved in human resources.
Oh, for sure.
yeah, I do have a couch in my office and a box of tissues at all times. So I feel like a therapist sometimes.
Yeah.
But I did want to pursue that. So, I feel like the gifts God gave me are right for that career. And so I wanted to pursue that. So when I was meeting with my coach initially, she helped me walk through that process of deciding, is this really something I want to do? And I decided to apply for grad school and go into a counseling program. So I started that last fall, and I'm now in my second semester of school, which is a huge undertaking. Now that I'm back to work full time, I'm going to school part time. And sometimes I wonder, is that too much while I'm still recovering from cancer? But for me, it gives me a sense of purpose and meaning in my life. And I always need a goal to strive towards, especially, when you're dealing with cancer. A lot of times you worry, do I have a future? How much time do I have left? But for me, having this goal, knowing it's going to take me like probably 4 years to get through school, it makes me think more long term, like, okay, I will still be here in 4 years. I do have something to give back to this world, that I need to stay here longer. And I have this purpose that I'm working towards. So for me, it's really, taken the focus off of cancer. And because of the content of the curriculum, it's been really helpful in my journey, because it's all about getting to know yourself better so that you can help others. So that's been really healing for me.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's so good, because I liked that your point about giving you something to look forward to the future. And I can completely relate with the goal. I sit down every year in January and think about like, what do I want to do this year? Because sometimes it does feel like, oh, someday I'll get to that, or someday that would be nice to do, or this would feel good for me to strive for. But if you really don't take action on it, the magic is in the action.
I think there's just such a interesting line, because we're constantly telling people to live in the moment, to be present, right? To experience life as it's happening, and not constantly. Because one of the things that I used to do was I would always be looking to the future too much.
Oh yeah, like there is definitely a balance for sure.
But then it's like, okay, so then I found myself saying, well, pull back and just focus on the present moment, enjoy where you are, don't constantly be striving, right? Like I can't tell you how many times God just impressed upon me, like, stop striving. However, I think that it's also super important to have something to look forward to, right? It's like planning that vacation in advance and then working toward that goal. There is a fine balance between living in the moment, but also putting things out there that feed your soul, that keep you motivated and excited and engaged in life. And it sounds like you've really figured that out, Stephanie. And I love that you assessed, is this too soon to jump into this right after treatment? I think the fact that you asked that question and really went through it and why it made sense for you was important, because we do see a lot of people who jump into something too soon and then they end up having to pull back. And that happens really a lot. So I think, really analyzing your motivation. Why do I want to do this? How is it serving me? Is it serving me? It sounds like it is for you. It's hitting all of your buckets. For other people, it may not. But I think just asking that question and not being afraid is really, really critical. Yeah.
Initially, I had applied to enter grad school while I was in treatment.
Oh, girl.
And I think God was like, not yet. So fortunately, I didn't get in until the fall. I initially was trying to get in the spring, and they said, we don't have enough openings, but you can go ahead and apply again in the fall. And so I think that was God's way of protecting me, of like, hey, not yet. You're not ready for this yet. And sometimes I am tempted to try to go full time, but I'm like, no, I know my limitations. That's just too much. And it's going to take me longer, but that's okay. I need to learn to not take on too much, to slow down a bit. So I find like right now it's a really good balance for me.
Yeah. And you're in that year out of treatment that is so pivotal. So I imagine it's very also healing for you to just have all the content that you're getting through your classes and to be able to like directly apply it. It will serve you now, but it also serve all the people that you are able to counsel and help in the future too.
Yeah, definitely. I really hope that I can use my journey to help others in the future. That's my goal.
Wow. How important, just in your, professional life with the work that you're doing, and then also just personally, how important do you think it is to find meaning and purpose in suffering? Like, what are your thoughts around that? Because Sarah and I think it's pretty critical for the people listening. We mentioned it before you got on. It's like some people really use their breast cancer diagnosis. They want to help other breast cancer patients or other people who are suffering, which is kind of the road you've taken. There's also people who are just like, I don't want to live in this world. I want to leave it behind me and never look back. So finding purpose and meaning looks different for different people, but how important do you think it is just generally in life and especially after a breast cancer diagnosis?
I think it's critical. I just read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, where he talks about finding meaning even in suffering. And I understand the perspective of, I don't want to be in this breast cancer world for the rest of my life, because I've had those moments myself where, I started this journey thinking, oh, I want to help other people get through cancer or other critical illnesses. But then I'm like, do I really want to keep thinking about this for the rest of my life, And I respect that, for some people, they might not want to do that. And that's okay, but you can find meaning in other ways. It could be in someone you love. It could be finding meaning in being, a parent. It could be being a good friend. There's all kinds of ways we can help people that have nothing to do with cancer.
I think it's about having an outward focus other than ourselves. When we hyper focus on ourselves all the time, I think that's when people get depressed. That's when people get upset. That's when they ruminate on their experiences. But when you're focused on something outside yourself, that does something to your soul, I think. It's like there's purpose and meaning in that. So I was just curious your thoughts on that, especially since you're going into this field.
Yeah, I think that's the key for sure. Like the Surgeon General recently talked about loneliness, and the antidote to loneliness is to go out and serve others. And so it really is getting outside of yourself and finding, how can you make a difference in someone else's life? And then that has a huge impact in your own life. And another thing about meaning is that it can change throughout your life. So it's not stagnant. It's not something that, oh, this is my sole purpose in life. Your meaning will change as you progress through life. So in one moment, it could be, I'm all about being a mom and being the best mom I can be. And then in another moment, it can be like, I'm going to go back to school and become a counselor. It can change throughout life. So I think that's important to remember as well.
Oh, that's a good message. That's a good message. I feel like sometimes I myself put myself in a box.
This is who I am. And
I can either be a good mom or I can be good at my job.
No.
Yeah.
It's all about that growth mindset. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Different phases of life require different things. And that's the exciting part. That's the part that's motivating, right? Is that who you are today isn't who you need to be tomorrow.
Can be shift.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Fluid.
So before we kind of sign off with your final thoughts for anybody listening, let's hear from our second sponsor.
Thrivent is a proud sponsor of Faith Through Fire. Thrivent believes money is a tool and not a goal. The Gateway Financial Group with Thrivent is local to the St. Louis area and can work with you to create a financial strategy that reflects your priorities and helps you protect the things that matter to you, like family and giving back. Please call 314-783-4214 to schedule a free consultation with one of Thrivent's Gateway Financial Advisors. All right, we are back. I would love for you to leave the audience with some final words, Stephanie.
So I just want people to know that a breast cancer diagnosis isn't the end. It can just be the beginning to something new and beautiful. And it's a reminder to follow your dreams and do what you feel is right for you in this life. And you have so much more to give to the world. So don't focus on, the limitations, but the possibilities.
Oh, I love that. Did you write that down?
I was going to say, when you get done,
That just came to me.
I was just going to say, I'm going to reserve a spot on your couch in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing your story. We appreciate having you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Until next time, guys.
See ya.
Thank you for being a listener of the Besties with Breasties podcast. If this podcast had a positive impact on your journey, leave us a review or consider becoming a supporter. You can donate with the link in the show notes or at faiththroughfire.org. This episode was hosted by Sarah Hall and Beth Wilmus, audio and production edits by Innovative Frequencies.